Cool. So now you can see that you've been recorded. Still hear me?
I can hear you. You hear me?
Perfect. All right, we're gonna start now. And this pit's just for me, and then I'll start, and then you'll see how it goes. Okay. So 3, 2, 1, go. Please welcome to today's episode of the Tea with Mike show, Justin Reeves, also known as JD the author, writer of the book Post-Traumatic Street Disorders: The Battle Within, a single dad of 3 boys, and a mental health advocate. Welcome to the podcast, Justin.
Thank you for having me.
No, as super excited to get into your story, which obviously has taken many twists and turns. So let's start with, can you just start by telling us where you grew up and where you now call home?
Okay. Well, I grew up in New York City. I moved to South Carolina when I was a preteen, and I moved back to New York City as an adult. And I was about 24 when I came back to New York. So I lived in the North, I lived in the South, I lived in a couple of different places.
So in your bio, you mentioned that you had a challenging childhood. So can you tell us kind of the story of your childhood and kind of what you learned about yourself growing up?
Yeah, well, I was born in '92. I was born a crack baby. My mother was on drugs. And I grew up in foster care because due to her drug problem, I was born in foster care, and from there I had a rough time growing up because I was in a lot of different foster homes. So I experienced a lot of things. I seen a lot of things I wasn't supposed to see, and I ended up getting incarcerated early at a young age, and from there I just was in and out the streets. I was in and out the streets a lot in life. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
I was
in and out the streets a lot. So I ended up a single dad. I ended up a single dad with my 3 boys, and in New York City. Oh my God, let me put my phone here. Can you hear me? Can you still hear me?
Yeah. No.
I'm sorry. I lost connection.
No, it's okay. You just keep rolling because we're only capturing the audio anyway. So
okay. You're only getting the audio.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm sorry. People was calling. I forgot to put my phone on airplane mode. I am so sorry. But okay. I was basically where I was at. I was a single dad of 3 boys. I became a single dad of 3 boys, and we're in New York City. We went through the shelter program, just me and them. And I sat down, I wrote. I was going through a lot of battles, depression, anxiety, dealing with a lot of trauma the trauma I grew up with. And the only thing I ever had was writing. So I used that as an outlet, and I used it, and people fell in love with it as I started putting it online. And here we are. I got a book coming out at the end of the month.
Perfect. And so obviously, as we speak now, and maybe reflecting back a little bit, what are some specific things that you learn about yourself and from some of the struggles and the challenges that you kind of faced?
All right. Some of the things I learned, one of the most important things I learned about myself was I actually have more strength than I think I have more strength than I think I have. But like before you feel weak sometimes because when you're going through things and it seems tough and you feel like you can't make it. But then as you start making it through things, you start getting through those things, you realize that I made it through. So you realize you're stronger. So I had to realize I'm actually stronger than I am. That's the main thing. So it's like, there's nothing I can't get through. And I have more belief in myself than I ever had in my life. Now that I look back at it, I look at the challenges and the obstacles, and you realize every obstacle only makes you stronger and it only prepares you for what you want to do. So you just go and you just take life and you can make it to what you want as long as you put in your everything into it.
And so would you say that you built up a sense of resiliency?
Yeah, you become relentless. You become relentless in a way because it's like you learn only thing can stop you is you. right? If for me, if I didn't get gunned down, I didn't end up with 100 years in jail. I'm not like a lot of my friends in my communities where they didn't have where a lot of us didn't have options. So as for me, it was more like, okay, if I don't make it out, if I don't do something more, I'm gonna be here forever. I'm gonna be doing this forever, and I'm gonna die doing this, or I'm gonna end up in jail for a long time. And I have responsibility. I understand my kids was depending on me, so it's nothing is gonna. It became a mindset that nothing is gonna stop me. Nothing is gonna stop me. I'm gonna achieve what I need to achieve, and I kept going at it, going at it, going at it, and it just built a mindset for me.
And would you say, based off what you've been through so far, would you say that your perspective on overall life is maybe different than some people that hasn't been through the same struggles? So, for example, if you're buying a cup of coffee at a at a shop and they forget to put in the cream and just getting on with it versus complaining that they did it wrong, those sorts of
Yeah,
things.
yeah. You and it becomes that you appreciate the smaller things. When you come from nothing, you appreciate the small things. It doesn't become about it doesn't you don't matter about the cream in the coffee when you've been through certain things in life. You don't that you just take it and you go. You learn to take things as they go. Okay, well, I might not got my cream on here, but where you going, you could stop and get it. It's always a way around it. It's just about finding out a solution. I tend not to worry about the problem. I like to worry about the solutions when I worry about the problem. So that's what the things I've been through gave me was able allowed me to do.
Excellent. And obviously, you just spoke to some of the challenges that you faced growing up. But what are some of your favorite childhood memories and why?
My favorite childhood memory. I didn't have I my favorite childhood memories wouldn't have came until I was a teenager. Um, and I would probably I've had to pick a childhood memory. Um, I'd probably say the year I played football was probably like the most funnest year for me because I felt like a normal kid for once. So that was like the most. That's probably one of my favorite childhood memories. And I don't know. My childhood was kind of different. It was just I just was just bad. Like I was just one of them bad kids. Like I would just find trouble just seemed to find me. So like it was a little different for me.
Uh, and was there anybody that I guess, like, how did you how did you get on the football team or become interested in it? Was there anyone that suggested that you look into it, or
Oh,
was it just
so what happened
yeah?
was, like I said, I was incarcerated early. So when I came out, I was incarcerated for my whole middle school years. So when I came out, I was in a new area. We ended up moving into a new area, a little bit more suburban than where I usually live, and the school had a football team, and my adopted brother actually he was on the football team. He wasn't all that good, but he was on it. So, but it looked fun. It looked interesting. So it's just like I want to try it too. And I always had like this secret love for football, where like I just would like play it in the street. Like we play tackle football on concrete, little stupid stuff like that, right? And it was just like I wanted to do it, so it just like it was something different, and it was a possibility. It was the first time like nobody growing up was signing me up to play football or none of those things. So I feel like I had to get in trouble growing up. Like I feel like if somebody would have did that, maybe I wouldn't have gotten in as much trouble. So I played when I signed, went to the school. I signed up and I played and I had fun. It was fun. And that's why my son he plays football now. He started playing at 4 years old.
Next, and we're gonna get to that a little later. So we're gonna pause for a moment. We're gonna have a little tea fact that we do on every episode of the Tea with Mike podcast, and then we're gonna jump right back in. So the tea fact for the episode is: before the 8th century BC, tea in China was primarily used as a medicine. Ancient Chinese people often boiled fresh tea leaves and drank the infusion. They believed that tea reduced heat and improved eyesight, and that comes from ChinaHighlights.com / travel guide. So that's something interesting about tea.
Wow, wow. You drink a lot of tea?
I drink multiple cups of tea a day, so my favorite tea is Yorkshire tea. It's very strong black tea, and I add a little bit of milk. Too much milk and the tea is ruined for me personally.
Wow. See, my team trying to get me to drink more for health reasons. They're like, it keeps you from being sick. It keeps you this. It keeps you. So my team around me, the people around me, are trying to get me to drink more. So I found I have to put a little. I have to make mine taste completely different. Lemon. I need about, I feel like 4 pounds of sugar because you gotta I gotta dilute mine with sugar and lemon and honey and I need a peppermint. I need the flavored tea. I just can't drink tea, but I'm trying. It's something I'm trying to get into.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of tea. Like a lot of things, there's so many like different types and varieties. Even beyond the flavors, to like how you prepare the tea makes it taste different.
Wow, wow.
So, when did you first start writing, and what sort of things did you write about?
Um, well, I put it in the book. The first thing I ever wrote, first time I ever wrote anything. A fun fact was I was 7.5. This is the first time I ever wrote anything. It was just my pure feelings. I just put like something like I hate my life on a piece of paper. That's what started. That's like the first time I ever wrote anything. I just put my feelings down. And then when what started me actually writing was I was 15 years old. Once again, it was one of the times I was incarcerated too. Um, and I used to write like poems, and I started writing about my life, and it got around the facility that I was in. Some of the staff would read my writings, and it made it all the way to the director, and he brought me inside. He sat me down. He was like, "You are gifted," and he was like, "Would you like to do speeches? Would you want to do speeches?" So they had me do speeches in different speech contests. I had to write a speech out. I won first place in my speech contest, and I had to do a speech for like a different like local politicians. I had to do one for them, and then I had a dream. I wanted to write a book. I was 15 years old. Like, I want to write a book about my life, and I started on it, didn't finish it. Uh, and throughout my life, periodically, I would like secretly write things. Like I'll be going through stuff, and I would kind of like a journal. It'd be like my journal. It's the way I would vent because I'm not the venting type of guy. I'm not the guy that likes to vent. I'm not the guy that's gonna just talk to you about my problems. I don't. I'm not the type to do it. I do everything, which is a bad thing for the people out there. That is not a good thing to do. If you have an issue, you should go talk to somebody, find somebody you can confide in. It's worse to hold things in. It's better to let them out. But for me personally, I I just wrote little bit by little bit, and then I never got it complete until finally now. I put all my focus on it, and I got my book.
Do you ever stop for a moment and think about the process? Because this sounds like it's captured your life to this like present moment, and it's just been building and building as your life has been twisting and turning.
Yeah, I do. I actually did that not too long ago. I sat back and I thought about how far I came. Actually, I was doing my edits on the book, and I'm going through editing, and it's this big thing, and it's like you just sit back and you think about your journey, and you don't realize sometimes because you're going through things, so you're not thinking as you're going through things, you're not thinking about it. You're just going through them, right? You're just going through it, going through it, going through it, and it's just like, oh, you know. And then you sit back. When you sit back, like if you ever have you ever watched like a old video of yourself and you look like you'd be like, wow, like, and
Oh,
you like
yes.
the feeling is completely different. It's like even better than it was in the moment. And it was like a light bulb for me. I was looking at him like, wow, I've really been through these things in the process of just getting the book. Like when I think about how it started off as a few sentences, and then them sentences turned into another sentence, and then that sentence turned to a chapter, and then one chapter turned into two chapters, and it just kept going. And at times you thought about giving up, but you didn't. And you fought through, and everything tried to distract you. Everything in life is attacking you, and as it's attacking you, you're still going, and then you get to the finish line, you know, and I'm right there at the finish line, and then you look back right before you cross, and you realize you came a long way, and it's like, wow.
To your point, I look back at the early episodes of the Tea with Mike podcast, and I'm like, whoa, did I do that? It sounded way better than it looks, you know.
Yeah,
So
because it's
so
like
those
it just
types
sounds
of
like something
feelings.
you just want to do, right? It's just like, hey, I want to do a podcast, and it's just so. And then as you go along and you start learning this, you learn that, you're getting the technique, and it becomes, and it's like, wow, you know, and it's amazing. It's almost like birthing a child. It's like birthing another child in a sense. It's like you're watching something just grow and just grow and just grow into something so beautiful, and it's like, wow, you know.
Yeah. And again to your point, sometimes we have to make time to stop and look back on how far we've come, because we're always living in the moment, and it's often going so fast. Though, and we get frustrated sometimes on what we perceive as a lack of progress. When if we stop for a moment and think about how far we've come, it's actually quite impressive.
Exactly. You know, and that's a lot of people struggle with that. They're always looking at how far they got to go, and they don't realize how far they came. And a lot of people do that, and that's what stops a lot of people, because they think they got so much far to go and they give up. But they didn't, instead of just turning around and appreciating that you came so far. Yeah, you might got a long way to go, but you came so far. So, and that's what a lot of people struggle with. It's including myself. I struggled with that for a long time. That I didn't appreciate my process. I didn't appreciate my journey. I didn't appreciate the things I've actually been through. I was just always looking forward at, oh, I got to do this. Oh my God, I got to do this. Oh my God, I got to do this. And I had to slow down and just look back and say, wow, look at what yeah, you got to go there. Yeah, you got to do those things, but look how far you came. Look how far. Look, you went through those things, that, and this. Wow, you know?
Yeah, and then also the danger which a lot of people do, including myself, is comparing my journey, like what I've
Other
done,
people's
against
journeys.
against other people, right? Like the people the same age as me, the people, and it's like, that's a really dangerous game to play, because we're just not mapped
The
and to do
same.
exactly the same thing, right? So even though they may be what society perceives to be further along in the current moment, it's really, what's it going to look like in 40 years time?
Exactly, you know, and I struggle with that too. I think we all do struggle. We struggle with that because John down the street, he's doing this and he did it on this level, and I'm doing it and I'm not doing it on this level, but that's not my path. You know, you don't know what John, who helping John. You know, we don't know who he got in his corner. So it's like everybody's journey is different, and that's why it's, in a sense, whatever you're doing, you have to kind of do it in like a tunnel vision way, because yeah, you got to look at the other people that's around you. You got to look at the competition around, in a sense, but it's still better to be tunnel vision, because it's like it's easier to stay focused if you're focusing on what you're doing, instead of worrying about, oh, well, he got 100 streams today, or he got 1,000 streams and I only got 50, I only got 75. You know, you just got to keep putting in that work. You just got to keep doing it. You got to keep going, and you never know, before you know, you might pass John down the street. John, and the thing I learned, you might be looking at what John doing, but John might be looking at what you doing, saying you doing it right, you know? And it's just funny like that. Like one time it happened to me. I had a friend, and I used to kind of like be like, wow, like, how is he doing all this? How is he doing all this? And one day he came to me, was like, yo, you motivate me. Here he is with a bunch of success. He got all these things going on, and I'm comparing my life to his, and I'm modeling my life after yours. But he came to me and said, "You motivate me," and
Wow.
that gave me a sense that kind of was like, "Wow, just do what you do, just do what you do, JD, and everything will be all right."
It's amazing, man. And so, would you say that you used writing as a coping mechanism or as a way of escaping from your situation?
Yeah, it's definitely a coping mechanism, and it was a way for me to escape, because I didn't have a lot of I didn't have really any outlets. It wasn't a lot of people lined up I could talk to. I didn't have a mother or a father I can go to communicate with my problems with. I didn't have that. So writing was my only way that I can do it without no consequence, without nobody judging, without it. Writing my thoughts don't come with somebody telling me how they feel. I could just put down how I feel on paper, and sometimes that helps me through, because a lot of things I write, sometimes I write things just to motivate me. Is a lot of it. The things I write is about my journey, about the things I've been through, about the things I've seen, and things that helped me.
And so, why was it so important for you to turn your life around and become a good role model for your children?
It was important to me to do that because I had to basically. I know they depending on me, and then another thing I know kids do. They don't do as you say. They do as you do, right? So I know that regardless of how much I preach, don't be in the streets. Don't get in trouble. Don't. But if that's not what I'm doing, if I'm doing everything opposite what I'm saying, they're just gonna go with my actions. So I knew that, and I know I want them to be better. If I want them to be that better, I have to be better. That just come with leading anything, leading a team, leading whatever any leadership role. For you to have a good team, you have to be a good leader, and you have to lead by example. You can't lead with words. You have to lead by example. So I have to lead by example. I can't just say don't do this, don't do that. No, I have to I have to show y'all the way, and that way you can follow.
And do you remember a specific moment when you were like, I've got to change, I've got to do better?
Wow, that's a tricky question because I had a lot of enlightening moments. The last event that happened to me that really opened up my eyes, that really made me appreciate things, was when my brother committed suicide. That was one of the biggest things. I'm from everything from being homeless to jail to anything. Nothing in life hurt me more than that, to see him, that watch his demons beat him. And that made me appreciate life more. That made me appreciate the things I've been through, and the places I'm going to, and appreciate that I'm still living, and just appreciate life in itself.
And so, what were the most challenging things about trying to turn your life around, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Technically, this is something I'm still working on, and that's why my story is unique, because a lot of the things I'm still going through now. A lot of these things I'm still dealing with right now. So there was no. It was like, for me, right? I had to do it. I had to turn it around, right? I knew I had to. I had to turn it around. And the defining moment, it was just like, okay, this is what you got to do. This was it, or I'm gonna die out here. It was like if you don't do this, you're gonna die. It's life or death.
And
So
so,
a lot of it, a lot of it I'm still dealing with. A lot of it I'm still dealing with. So there's no things what I'm doing to overcome it, though, is I'm focusing on what I want out of life. So the way, I guess that's like answer your question. That's the only way I deal with it, is by focusing on learning my purpose, finding my purpose, and working on the things I want to do in life, and understanding that I want things out of life, and the only way I'm going to get them is I go after them, right? I can't say I want to be better if I'm not doing things to be better. So that was it for me, pretty much.
so really, ultimately thinking about what's important to you in
Yeah,
life,
because
essentially.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I still deal with a lot of the battles. Like I said, for my life has always been one foot in, one foot out the streets. So the hardest thing to do is get that other foot out. That's the hardest thing to do, because the hardest thing to do is get outside your comfort zone, right? So that's the hardest thing you can do in life, is to get outside your comfort zone and do something completely different than what you ever done before.
Definitely, because when you're trying to do something different, everybody else is going to disagree. And going back to when we were talking about judgment earlier in the episode, they're going to have their 2 cents, but you have to be like, does that really matter? Am I going to know this person in 3 years that I knew at the beginning of whatever I'm trying to do, right?
Exactly. So it's just about keep going. That's my message to people. Like, when a lot of people ask me, well, how do you stay strong? It's like, I just believe in me. That's it. I believe in me, and I just always look for I always look for the positive. I don't worry about, like I said earlier, I don't worry about the problem. I think of a solution. I'm always thinking of the solution. Okay, because problems are gonna happen, right? Life is not gonna be anything without a problem, right?
Definitely not.
It's just knowing the solution is how you solve it. That's the only way to solve it. So if I worry about the problem, I'll never have a solution, and I know that.
And so what inspired you to write the book Post-Traumatic Streets Disorder, A Battle Within, which is a really great and strong title, by the way. And what is kind of the message that you want to give people through that book?
The message I want to give to people is, it's a few messages in there. One of the first messages was kind of giving people an understanding of why things happen, because it's all a cycle. Everything in life that we go through is like a cycle. We all creating cycles, right? You're doing this now, but when you have your kid, as you go further, your kid will follow your cycle because you done built it. Just like you probably your dad was successful, so he set a bar for you to be successful. So one of the things is to break a cycle. That's one of the big things. So a lot of people break cycle, and then a lot of people, I want people to see that a lot about me is the reason why I'm able to become successful is because I never gave up. I never gave up. I went through these things, and I never let it change who I was. I never let it determine who I was gonna be. I never let it determine my mindset. I was abused, but it didn't make me an abuser. You get what I'm saying?
I
So
do.
we could choose. We could choose to be different. We just got to really make that choice and go and take that foot forward and do it.
And so obviously that sounds like there's a lot of great messages that obviously reflect upon your life and the things that you've been through, but then also more broadly as pieces of advice and the different people will be able to resonate with, right? Based on their own struggles.
People. Exactly, a lot of different people will be able to resonate with it. If you're dealing with addictions, if you're dealing with just trying to find purpose in yourself, if you're dealing with even struggling to because I struggle with all these things. You know, I struggle with all these things. Just regular trauma. How do you get over the fact of even death or whatever? Just you're gonna see me. I dealt with so many different aspects of life. I dealt with many things and many battles, and you're gonna see me attack each angle. You're gonna see how I attack each angle, and I'm no different from any person walking the face of this earth. I feel literally every emotion. I just choose to not soak in it. I choose not to throw pity parties for myself. I choose to still get up out the bed and say, Justin, I'm gonna be somebody. Through it all, you're gonna be somebody. And that's what I want to show people. There's so many people in my community. There's so many people in my community that don't have hope. That just living to survive. You know, and it breaks my heart. It's so many kids that just they don't think they could do nothing better. They don't think there's nothing outside the community, outside them blocks, outside them projects. They don't think there's nothing more they can do, but maybe be a rapper or go dribble a basketball, or throw a football. I use my brain. I use my experience, and I just put it on paper, and I gave it to you.
And this is almost a different conversation for another day, but an extension of what you just said in certain contexts, depending on your path is like going past the traditional career paths and going to college. That's a whole nother debate, right?
Yeah. Me, I went to college for music. See, me, I always wanted to do music. That was my main thing when I was young. I wanted to do music, but it didn't work out. Things don't always work out for us. Yeah. We might put a plan together and the plan don't work. That don't mean that you don't have a big purpose in life. Just because that didn't work out doesn't mean something else is not for you. That doesn't mean that I'm not supposed to entertain. That doesn't mean I'm not supposed to give my story. That doesn't mean I'm not supposed to give my message. I could have said, life gave me all these things, and I don't have no chance of going to the studio now because I got to be a dad, or I have to do all these things, so it's hard. It's hard. I could have made excuses and just gave up, but I didn't.
Right, and when I was growing up, I always loved theater and the entertainment industry and the stage, and I started off as an actor, and I really wanted to make it all the way to Broadway, but the reality was I didn't have the vocal ability, and it's my opinion that you need to have a certain level of bass talent in the voice to be able to mold it into something great. But I still kept doing things that I loved around people, and I worked in like technical theater, so I kind of transferred to behind the scenes, and then obviously even now the current outlet, I guess, for me to entertain and to have fun and I'm not that creative, but to have a little bit of creativity, I guess, is the podcast.
Yeah. And for me, it's like I didn't really. It was hard. Like finding your purpose is hard. Like for a lot of people, it's hard. Like what am I supposed to do with my life? Right? What am I supposed to do? Everybody's not gonna be a rapper. Everybody's not gonna be this singer. Everybody's not gonna be the next Denzel. But there isn't just Denzel, right? How many actors are there? How many different movies? So it's always a lane. You just have to find where you fit at in that lane if that's what you want to do. You have to find out where you fit at in that lane. And you attack it from that angle. You have to find out what works for you. Finding a purpose isn't always something so big. Your purpose, like for me, my purpose is to be a light for others. Right? Help people find the light within themselves. I am a light. That's why I went through all these things and continue to shine in my most darkest moments because I'm a light. Regardless of how low I was able to pick somebody else up. I could have been on the brink of suicide, and at times I almost committed suicide. But even then, I would talk somebody else off the edge. I might be ready to die, but I could talk you off the edge. So that's always been my purpose, and it's just about finding out what works for you.
And so, what was the most challenging thing about writing the book, and why?
The most challenging thing about writing the book was, to be honest, to keep going. That's the most challenging thing, is to not give up, is to keep going. And I say that because it's like, we were talking about earlier, you get caught up in how far you got to go, and it becomes discouraging. And then you think about all these people with these great books. Me, I like to read. So I think about all these great authors. And then you start comparing yourself, like we talked about earlier. So it's like you think about how far you got in your book, and you're like, it might not measure up to this person's book, or it might not, and it gets tough, and it gets challenging because it's like, can I do anything with this book? Is this book gonna? So the thought of the actual project, completing it, and then keep going and not become discouraged is the hardest part of it. Because the writing is really writing the ideas down and everything, that's easy. It's just to keep going and not stopping.
Perfect. So how challenging has it been for you to get the book published, and what route for its publication have you decided to follow?
It's going to be self-published through my publishing company, Visionary King Publishing. So I'm taking the self-publishing route.
Any particular reasons why this route?
Because I don't want somebody to basically try to tell me what I cannot. Is I'm more of a self-made person. One of my favorite artists of all times is Nipsey Hussle. And if you listen to Nipsey, he's always about taking the stairs and doing things that way you can have a legacy. And I'm big on my legacy. So I know that if I put in the work, nobody's gonna work it like I'm gonna work it. Nobody's gonna care about my product, my book, the way I care about it, right? So if I was to hand it over to a publisher, they could decide to shelf me. They could decide how much work they're gonna put in, how much promotion, how much marketing, and everything else goes into my book. But when I know I'm putting it out, I know I'm gonna do everything possible to make sure it goes and be successful.
It makes perfect sense. And then, so when and where can people find the book?
The win, people have to wait for the win because it's gonna drop soon with the pro. I got a special promo video coming. The
Oh,
where
cool.
is gonna be pretty much everywhere. Everywhere you could buy a book is gonna be Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. For people in New York, mostly your local bookstore, um, Amazon, my website www.jdtheauthor.com. So it's gonna be on quite a few platforms. And then we're gonna release an audio book later.
Oh, that's cool because everybody likes to consume media and in different ways, right? From audio
Yes.
to video to written.
And audiobooks are almost a new thing. It's so convenient because it's like I don't have to sit down and read it. I could clean up and listen to this book. I can actually get things done. I could drive my car and listen to this book. So it's like audiobooks and are so convenient. And I somebody had to sway me to audiobooks maybe about a year ago because I'm such a like an old I'm old and young at the same time. All the people call me old man because I got like I'm so stuck in the old ways of doing things. So
Right.
like I didn't even really like I love going to buy the book. Somebody had to make me do the ebook and download it because then the person was like, why you just don't get the audio book? I'm like, no, I got to set time to read, and if you get the audio book, you get things done. And so I just gave in. I bought an audio book, and I realized I finished 2 books in one day. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
so it was like, yeah, I love the audio book thing too.
So on your website, you have T-shirts for purchase printed with the message. If you're reading this, someone loves you. So what does this message mean to you, and why is it so important for you to spread this message?
Um, because like I referred to earlier, my brother committed suicide, and I just wish somebody would have told him somebody love you, and just knowing somebody loves you could save a person's life, you know, and it could help so much if you just could remind somebody that they're loved. That's simple gesture because most of the time when you're low like that, you feel like you got nobody. You feel like there's nobody out there in the world. You feel like life is not worth living. Like I don't want to do this no more. I don't need to be here. Nobody cares if I'm gone. In reality, that is not true. There's somebody gonna miss you. Like I miss my brother every day. Not a not a day goes by that he's not on my mind. Not a day goes by that I ever felt like I didn't love him. You know. So it just life happens, and sometimes you get taken apart. And I got a lot going on over here. You might have got going on over there, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. So I did this in honor of him to let him know that someone loves you. And maybe even before somebody goes commits the next crime and they got to go do 25 years, they thought that, yo, somebody loves you. Your kids, you don't have to do that crime. You don't have to do this. Is it worth it? Does somebody do love you? You know, and it can help.
A very important message, and I think we all need to remember that because no matter how successful you've had it and where you came from, like we all have those low moments in life, and you should try and think of it of a get the help if you need it, and then also b that if this is the lowest point in my life, it can only get better, right?
Yeah, for me, I had to go to therapy. I had to go to therapy because for me, therapy, it got to a point where I was, you shake a soda up, you keep shaking that soda up, what's gonna happen if you open, it's gonna explode. Well, I was at the point where I was about to explode, especially last year with the pandemic, and I just couldn't take it. It was getting to a point I couldn't take it no more. I couldn't. My brain just was on overload. So I had to go to vent to somebody. I had to talk to somebody, and there's nothing better than talking to a therapist. And I know there's a lot of misconceptions about therapy, and a lot of people feel like therapy is just for the weak, or there's a lot of, especially in my community, people who don't really trust therapists because it's about talking. And but if you find the right therapist, it helps. It helps to have somebody help listen to you and help you sort those thoughts out.
I could agree with you. Like two years ago, 2019 was probably like the worst year of my life, and my parents decided that I needed some help that outside of them, and I was very skeptical about it for all the reasons that you just described, and how it'd make me like, because I pretended that I had it all together, whereas the reality and my actions told me I didn't actually have it together. And even
Yeah.
even 6 to 8 months, that really change my viewpoints and help me get to the point where I'm asking myself the question, a bit like you were talking about earlier. It was, what's really important? Is it Joe Bloggs' opinion, or is it I want to do this podcast? All those types of scenarios.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so what are some of the proceeds of sorry, what are some of the proceeds of the sales of the t-shirts being used for?
They're actually going. I'm donating to different suicide prevention rooms. I'm gonna start. I'm also in the future gonna start one for kids who battle, who's on the suicidal break, who's ready to commit suicide. 'Cause I was one of the people that was fortunate enough that I almost did it. I actually tell a story in my book where there was a night where I almost killed myself. Where I actually tried to in high school. I actually tried to kill myself. I put the gun to my head and everything. It was bullets in the gun. Um, and I pulled the trigger, but the gun did not go off. So with me not dying and me not killing myself in high school, and it's like, look how my life still turned out. If I would have killed myself in high school, none of this would have been possible, right? I would have cut it all short before I even had a chance to live. So that's why my proceeds is going to suicide prevention groups.
What a fantastic initiative, man. I always believe that it means a whole lot more when you donate to charities that support things that you've been through personally. Has a whole different level of meaning.
Yeah, I love giving back. I give back as much as I can. Like I do things that I don't like. I don't necessarily record because like if even like people, a lot of people tell me to record the things I do, even just to like promote my brand, and that's the big battle I have with my team because it's like I do it for the genuineness. I do it for the purity. I like to give. I like for other people to have more than me. For Father's Day, I took my kids to we go in and fed the homeless. I rather would have done that than anybody give me a gift for Father's Day. I already appreciate my journey as a dad. I appreciate having my babies. I appreciate